Okay, I wanted to do a quick video on how I intend to modify this BBI f-16. I haven't seen a lot of this on YouTube, and I know there's quite a big 1/18 scale following, so I'm going to be doing an afterburner effect with a little bit of added weathering. I'm using a 12-volt battery pack with a inline charge, some quick connectors. I got a 50mm LED in amber and plastic cone here. This was from a candy shop online. It's supposed to be like a funnel to hold candy. Anyways, I'm going to be lopping that, cutting the belly of this f-16 open, installing the battery pack, installing a switch too. I've got a switch, and then putting it all back together with the LED in the burner. This will be the simulated flame essentially coming out of the back. We'll do some weathering. First thing I'm going to do is just kind of start to take everything off of it. So I think I'm going to put the recharge port under the hook here, hopefully, if it'll fit right there. I'll probably figure out a way to get that. It's kind of right there, so it's hidden by the, semi-hidden by the hook. That'd be kind of cool, so you can recharge, because this is just a LiPo pack, so that can be recharged. And then probably hide the switch somewhere up here. I'm not really sure. We will have to add a panel line, kind of right here, because I'm going to be cutting probably this whole section out, so I can lift this. I'm not sure yet. Kind of figuring it out as I go. These are sort of notoriously lacking detail. Not so much the f-16. It's okay. It's not great, but the f-18 from BBI has a terrible burner nozzle. So I redid that with a 3D printed one on my other one. I'll maybe make a video on that as well. Okay, and I also purchased a new Dremel mandrel and a new cutoff wheel for this project, specifically because I need to make a really thin cut, so I have very little filling to do. So this is the absolute thinnest wheel I've ever seen. It's like razor thin. There's the information on the wheel from Gyros. Okay, so I'm basically going to follow this panel line and add my own line right here, kind of coming across to make it look like where I cut is following an actual panel line. I'm going to come back down this way, cross over to the same thing on the other side, and then follow this line here, kind of cut this big section out, and we'll see what we have in here, see what we have for access, see if we can fit the battery pack in right there, and then wire the switch and everything kind of out of the way, and we'll go from there. So first, let's go ahead and mock up a line here. So I've got my panel line kind of marked out over here on this side, and I'm just gonna go ahead and see how this cuts. Okay, there we go. There we go. Boom. That is what we were after. Nice. Okay, that is tons of access. That'll be perfect. Yeah, that's perfection. Cool. That'll fit the battery pack and easily be able to wire the switch or wire the switch and lights through there because there's tons of room. Just deburring all the edges real fast with the X-Acto knife. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just trying to get the bulk of the melted plastic off. Okay, just gonna do a quick test of the LED before we go any further. Just for testing, there we go. Cool. It's a bright amber orange color. Should put a decent amount of light out of the back. I have a drill bit chucked up now, and I've got the ends cut off, the quick connect end cut off of the LED here. So I've just got open leads, and then I have an idea of where I need to cut through in the afterburner or in the exhaust nozzle area with the bit to kind of get through where I want the LEDs. There we go. Okay, I actually decided to do a little bit of dry brushing on the inside before I run those wires through, just so I get everything and I don't dry brush the LED on accident. So I'm trying to do this on camera. I'm not very good at it, but I'm gonna take some Testor's enamel. This is flat steel. I'm taking a pretty large brush and just kind of getting a little bit on it. Then I usually take a paper towel and I just get it to where almost nothing comes off. I apologize, I am not showing the camera what's going on here. So you want it to kind of look almost like that, very faint. I'm obviously not boy light hobby time, so it's not going to be the best, but I just kind of streak it around in there. Just to kind of, it almost gives a chipping effect. And it's a little bit, I have it on a little too heavy right now. That's decent. A little bit heavy in a couple spots, but that's all right. Not gonna see much of this when the cone is on. I don't know if you can see that at all, but basically just kind of, I'm allowing it to pit in there a little bit. So it starts out heavier and then kind of runs off the brush. That looks decent. It's better than it was. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'll do more in-depth detail on the outside because you'll see the outside better, but now we know it's got moderate weathering in there. Taking a little wire here. Just gonna use this to help me fish through for the LED. And then we'll take the LED and I'm just gonna tape the two leads real gently across. That doesn't need to be very secure because it's not going far. Use packing tape this time. Find out if it goes through. Okay, so I had to struggle with it a little bit, but you can see we got it in. Pretty centered right now too. Looks pretty cool. And the wires are hanging out of the belly. And you can't even see the hole actually. That should be perfect right there. Continuing with a little bit of natural light now. Flip the camera around. So where we left off is the LED is just kind of sitting in there right now. It's all dry brushed and weathered in there. Doesn't need to be perfect, but wires are hanging out the belly. And I'm gonna fix that in place with some epoxy. Just some quick set, something that'll hold up to temperature. Just a 5-minute set, and then we'll go from there. I'm gonna rough up the surface. People tend to forget that epoxy's like a mechanical bond. Okay, so I'm actually just gonna use a stone bit on the end of the Dremel here. Okay, should be good. Really only needs 2 spots to kind of hold it keyed in. So we'll go ahead and mix up a little bit of resin real fast. Cap off there. And cap off the hardener. Try and get it equal parts, as close to as you can. This is a 5-minute set epoxy. I'm pretty sure it's just a cheap one from Harbor Freight. Just kind of mixing on cardboard with a toothpick. Gotta work fairly quick now. So you know what, we're gonna stand it up real fast like this. Sorry for the rapid change camera work, but we are fighting the time with the epoxy right now. Basically just gonna pull the wires in. Okay, so we got it pretty much in place. Just gonna mix up a little more epoxy just to kind of get some of the edges that I missed. Should be good. Okay, so now that the LED is kind of in place and it's curing, we're gonna go ahead and reconnect the wires that we removed. So I'm gonna go ahead and strip a little material off of that one, and we can cut the end off of this side and strip about the same amount of material off. There we go. And then I'm just going to basically twist these guys together as if they're going into a bell nut, because I'm gonna just solder them. Normally I would just use a little small butt connector with heat shrink, but I am out, so I'm doing soldered connection. So my soldering iron is preheating, and then I'm gonna move this one. Actually, that one's okay. I got my little helping hands here to help me make the connection. There we go. Just kind of tin the wire like that. Cool. Okay, so the LED is in place and it's wired up. Got 2 bell nuts on it. Off camera, I accidentally forgot to record. And a little extra electrical tape just to kind of hold those, so those have no risk of shorting out on each other. The battery pack's just kind of sitting in there right now. What I am doing now, I've taken the switch. There's my teensy little switch. And I'm gonna be putting this. I figured that this would look best streamlined kind of with this raised section where it actually goes up to the hook, so that will probably be best right about there in line. You won't notice it. I'm gonna probably paint it to gray, just the part that actuates, just so it all matches up. But I've gone ahead and mic'd this out or measured this out with the calipers here, so I'm gonna go ahead and just leave a mark right here for where I want to trim to. Just do it by hand. That's pretty good right there. It's gonna wind up overhanging into this side a little bit. But, see if I can get it to focus. You can see once I clean up the burrs, there it is, actuated all the way back, and then actuated forward, actuated back, forward. This can kind of just meet up underneath and groove into here, but that should be perfect. Once it's painted, won't even know it's there. I've got the switch in here in the helping hands with the middle spade or middle pin going through it. Show that real fast. Right there, gonna solder that one on right now, and then I'll solder the other hot lead on. While I'm waiting for the soldering iron to heat back up, I'm gonna go ahead and punch through right here where the hook zeroes out, right there. I'm gonna punch through underneath it. Hard port right here from the inside. This while we wait. Just wanna make sure I start it centered. Okay, so I've just stripped more off of the grounds, put the hot lead back in here so I don't risk shorting anything out. I'm gonna go ahead and tin these two together as well. Gonna go ahead and do the other side of the hot lead of the switch right now. Got the ground all taped up. Nice. Okay, so we can go ahead and test it now. Go ahead and move this up so you can see. Yep. Perfect. That looks pretty sweet. Once we get something to diffuse the light right here, this is gonna be a really cool effect. What I'm gonna do now is fix the switch in place here. Gonna do that with some 2P10, which is this super glue and accelerator. This is really good stuff for a quick bond. Basically just spray it with this activator once you have it on there, and it goes to full cure within seconds, and it's pretty strong stuff. We're gonna mix up some more epoxy and just coat it around the edge here to really hold it keyed in, so there's no risk of it popping out in the future. And we're also gonna fix the charge port like this in its position, the hole that I drilled out under the hook. So I drilled that hole out and roughed up the surface right here, and then I coarsened up this with some sandpaper as well. So that'll sit right on there like that, so that this LiPo can be recharged, and then this tucks right over it and you don't even see it. Cool. I'm gonna go ahead and do the charge port now with some 2P10. Go fast. You got a little bit of work time with it, not a lot though. Put a little bit right there. So what I'm gonna do now is just check and see that the charger will go in on it. See, it should turn red if it accepts it. Oh. Yep. Cool. That's perfect. All right. Okay, just gonna go over what it looks like real fast. So there's the port, and the hook goes over it, and here's the switch. Okay, let that do its thing. I'm gonna go ahead and take the calipers here. Don't need them on. And I'm just going to check for the inner diameter. And that way I can take our cone and go ahead and go up on to right there. And then we'll mark it out. Actually, this might just scratch a mark onto it pretty well. Yeah. Cool. So it just kind of scuffed roughly where I need to be with it. Doesn't matter that it's scratched because I'm going to be sanding the outside down and using a pigmented epoxy to try and give this a color. So we'll go ahead and trim it now. Okay. And then we're gonna have to figure out how to make the light diffuse through it so it doesn't just go right past it. Let's go ahead and turn it on real fast. It's gonna look pretty cool once it has something to diffuse the light. Also, just gonna lap off the other end real fast. Okay, so off camera, I've also cut some extra little pieces of polypropylene that I had. Just gonna make a little battery box with these. Probably bond them together with the 2P10 just to keep them in place first, and then some hot glue to hold it, but kind of just be a little box like this. Okay. Okay, so what I've determined is that with this fairly large battery pack, it's going to be best if I course it up the top of the fuselage here and then bond it in like this so that it'll allow this panel to clear. And all go back together like so. There's our charge port and switch. So we're gonna go ahead and put a little bead in here, roughly where we want it. Okay. Gonna make sure that this all fits over it correctly before we get too far. I'm gonna go ahead and add a little more down the side of it. There we go. Don't let this box coming off or going anywhere. Cool, that should be good. Once that dries, it gives us nice space for all this too. And we can see that it is very secure in there, shaking it around. It's not going anywhere. I'm really happy with that little box. You could use anything, you could use ABS or wood or whatever you please, but that worked out pretty well. So now we'll go ahead and put the panel that we cut out back on. We're ready to mix up some more epoxy, bond the top on. Okay, going in with it. Okay, so we're out in my shed. I happen to be a composites technician, so this is where I do my layups, and I have access to some resins. So what I'm gonna do is actually pigment a resin with some orange pigment here, and then top coat the cone. Here's the other section that I cut off. I wound up sanding it down to help the bond, give it a little bond prep, and then I'll probably sand the inside to help diffuse the light, to give it that afterburner look. But we're gonna go ahead and mix up some resin real fast. Might be a little too much, I'm not sure. I want to get all the pigment in there so there's no random spots of bright color. Sort of what I'm after. Help give it an orange look on the cone. Give it a flame look. That way, even when the light's off, it has a decent presentation to it. We'll go ahead and mix this. There's the other scrap piece that we'll put it on first. This resin has a 20-minute pot life before it starts to be staged and is no longer workable. So just gotta bear that in mind as we go here. We'll start out on this guy. the air bubbles, I'll come back with a torch and get those, but the dry brush is actually kind of working too. So I want the color to kind of fade out, so we're gonna go for it. On here. Using one of these little mini torches. I'm gonna let it kind of thicken up for now. Also going to pour a little out onto the table so that if the pot starts to go off, I might have a little bit of workable material still. Okay, so it's starting to kind of thicken up and be staged a little bit. This is what I wanted to see it do, is get thick and less runny like this. So we go and do another coat. Okay, so it's the next morning and everything's cured, so we can go ahead and pull it off of here. There we go. Looks pretty cool. Let's see how it looks once we get the light on it. I'm going to sand the inside to help diffuse the light as well. Okay, so off camera, we trimmed this down, got it to where it'll fit nicely into the nozzle, and it looks really good in person. It kind of presents well even without a light, which is nice because it still has like a transparent look to where you can see through, as a afterburner flame typically does, where you can kind of see through it. But under the light, it looks incredible. I've already tested it a couple times. We'll go ahead and mock it up real fast. I mean, it presents very nicely, having a very slight metallic to the pigment that's in there. So even without a light, it does look pretty nice as is right now. And then we'll go ahead and flip it on. And it just looks really good. I don't know. Let's see, make sure it's in focus still. I mean, when you can see the halo of the light through it, it looks phenomenal. The way it kind of fades out with the dry brush at the end too. The camera might not show how good it looks in person, but it is too cool. I'm very happy with this. Yeah, that looks fantastic. Here's the rest of the install. Got a charge port right under the hook and switch and back off. We're gonna go ahead and sand the area right here and fill it right now, and then we'll come back and get ready to airbrush it. Okay, so I'm going to be using Milli Putt, which is a putty that hardens. And I'm going to use that to fill the seam right here. First, I'm going to sand it down. So Milli Putt is a 2-part putty, and it's equal parts. I'm sure lots of model builders have used it, but if you don't know, basically just cut a piece of each about the same size, and you just kind of knead it together with your hands. Good. About like so. And I have this steel tray so I can roll it into really thin beads. But we're just gonna go ahead and mix it up, and kind of falls apart when you start. Just gotta keep kneading it. Okay, so that's pretty well mixed up now. I'm gonna go ahead and start rolling it out into beads, but you want it to have a uniform yellow color. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is start to put it on and just lightly press it. And it's not gonna always stick. It's very, see, it'll kind of break away like that too. It's very, I'm not really sure what the word is to describe it. It's kind of, you gotta be just gentle with it, but because it does want to break. So when if it doesn't stick right away, I always have a little thing of water. This is my Milli Putt specific tool right there. And you can just get your finger wet, and it'll allow your finger to glide across it and help you push it into where you're trying to go with it and work with it. Because otherwise it gets a little too sticky and it breaks apart like a kind of like a dough. Okay. So now I'm just trying to get it to go in and fill the void. So I'm pushing pretty hard. Just using water to keep moving across the surface of it. But the idea is to just get it to fill the void that we cut open. I've got a plastic scraper here and a semi-dulled razor blade, which actually might be better. We'll see which one does the trick best, but let's see what the scraper does first. Nope. The scraper pulled too much of it out. Okay. It's good back there. So I'm gonna have to redo a little section. So I think the blade's gonna be better for trimming the excess off. We'll find out right now. Definitely gives it a cleaner line. I'm also going to use a flathead, a really small flathead, to get it out of areas that you don't want filled. Okay, gotta flip it over and start looking at the other side. And the really nice thing about this Milli Putt, I don't know if I said this already or not, but is that it has a really long work time. I'm not sure what it actually is, but it's quite a good bit before it starts to go off and not be really workable anymore. Okay, just to give a little update on how it's looking. Still gotta wipe the excess off, but you can see where the epoxy actually punched through. So wherever the milliput yellow is not connected is where I've got a spot that's high in the adhesive, which is fine because we're gonna come back and simulate the same panel line anyways. We're just filling the excess. Got a little spot that was trimmed right there. Okay, so I decided to add the panel lines in on the front and back seams with a pick while the milliput is still wet. Looks pretty good. I'm just gonna show the camera real fast how that looks. You can see it's kind of made a seam like that. So. Okay, so this is kind of how it looks after milliput. I'm using the pick to create a simulated seam. So now we're going to go ahead and sand it with 400 and get it ready for airbrush. I'm going to go ahead and mask off some of the area just to avoid any overspray, which I don't think I'll have. And now I'm going to use a little bit of Maskol, the Humbrol Maskol. It's a liquid mask, just to go over a couple spots like this where there's small details that will be best to just peel away a liquid mask. Okay, gonna go ahead and do another coat on it. This is the one I'm using, the Humbrol Maskol. It's really nice. It flashes pretty fast and then just makes a little like latex mask. Okay, so the airbrush is mixed up here with some flat black. We're just gonna kind of come through and get a light coat on. So we want it to look kind of like that because it's going to provide shading for the gray. Okay, so I'm going to do some really light shading with a lighter gray. There we go. I have some XF19 and Tamiya mixed up, and I've thinned it a little bit. Okay, so I've given the paint some time to dry. Now we can come back and take off the maskall, and it just scrapes away like that. All right, so now I'm gonna do a little bit of weathering on the exhaust nozzle and get the same effect as we did on the inside. I'll be using a dry brush again with the same flat steel color. I'm gonna start out pretty dry to be safe, and we'll see how it looks. Have it messed up a little bit. It's a little bit heavy still. So I dry it out a little more, come back. Definitely with how big this nozzle is, it needed a bit more attention to detail on it. That looks way better. Looks way more realistic already. Okay, so I'm coming back with a dry brush with a little bit of enamel thinner on it to just thin out some spots where it was a little bit too heavy. I do like it to look kind of heavy, kind of like an intense chipping effect, but I had it definitely a little too thick in a few spots. So the same concept can be applied in reverse with enamel thinner. You just kind of come through and wet out the areas that are too thick and just pull them away with the brush. Okay, so here it is after a quick once over. Let's go ahead and flick the light on while we can. Looks pretty sweet just like that. Cool. Okay, so I also kind of started doing this off camera, but I'm doing another effect on here to simulate this kind of a burnt, I don't know if it's titanium, I don't know what material this is here accurately on an f-16, but it gets that burnt metal hue right here on the real deal. So I'm doing that with a light blue right now that is thinned out with some enamel thinner. It's a Tesser's enamel as well. And I'm just gonna keep going around and adding this blue kind of haze in over these parts right here. And then come back and do maybe a little bit of orange to give it kind of that like almost like iridescent or titanium heated look. probably good for now. Okay, so it's got kind of a blue hue to it right now. It might look a little intense in some lights, but once we hit it with some orange or something to make it kind of flat out, it'll look pretty good. Coming back through with some paint that I just mixed up. It's a mixture of a red, yellow, and flat rust. And I've just kind of gone through and dry brushed a couple areas to see how it looks, and it kind of has an orangish look that I'm after. So we're just trying to bring this to more of a titanium look, burnt titanium look. That's starting to look good. Starting to look like a titanium finish. Nice. It's got a really nice kind of heat rashed look to it now. Might be a little too much sun on it, but come back and go up spots like that where it's a little thick just to make it blend a little better, but just immediately to the naked eye it already looks better. Okay. Not quite as blue as my reference photo, but it really does look pretty nice. Okay, so also off camera, I noticed that the tail decal here for the unit was coming off, which these commonly do. Very weak adhesive on these. So I mixed up some yellow. Okay, so we're just pulling all the masking off right now. There we are with our new yellow stripe, which actually looks much better than the very faded yellow of the decal. Also off camera, I've taken the decals and reapplied them, set them in some clear, gonna hold them in place, so they're back on now. Looks pretty nice. Okay, so off camera, I have taken the cone and then inserted some clear saran wrap to kind of give it the look of the distorted heated air coming out of the back. And just kind of left it loosely in there. Don't want to push it too close to the sides, but to give it kind of a flame effect in there. So we'll go ahead and put it all together right now. Oh, and also off camera, the decals have gone back on. There we are. Okay, so here's the finished product. It's hanging up in the man cave right now. Got a couple other birds up. So we're gonna go ahead and flick it on, show you what the finished product looks like. Let's see, there we go. And there is our afterburner. See if I can slow it down. There we go. It looks incredible. I could not be happier with this effect.
It looks perfect. Very happy with it. From every angle, it looks really, really cool. I especially like right here when you can see the halo LED in there. It looks phenomenal. So I'm super happy with this project. Probably my favorite man cave piece. Gonna get a few more cool shots of it. I was in cinematic mode there and it wasn't looking quite right, so I think it looks a little better in this regular video. Got it in a big bank. It really looks great in person. The camera does not do it justice. It looks phenomenal. I'm gonna go ahead and lower the blind in a second here too, so you can see it when there's no sunlight in the room or low sunlight in the room. And then it looks really cool. But yeah, it looks really good. Very cool, I'm very happy with the effect. Okay, so here's the look with lower light in the room. It looks really good. I know I keep saying that, but I'm blown away every time I kick it on. I was not expecting this type of result, honestly. So I'm very, very thrilled with it. The weathering came out really nice on there. And the look is really good. It just, the way it kind of tapers out at the back too, it all kind of blends together. And the little transition between the clear saran and the actual cone is not really noticeable. The camera makes it look more noticeable than it is to the naked eye. But in person, it just looks really, really good. Super happy with it. It's really cool to walk into this room with this on and see it like that. It looks like it's banking in your face and full afterburner. Okay, and here's a video of the maximum amount of light in this room that I can get in here with the light on and the blinds open, just to show that it still looks really, really good with overexposure of light on it. Very happy with it. The effect still shows through really nice. You can totally tell that the light is on. The dyed or the pigmented epoxy really disperses the light, as well as the clear saran. It helps the effect to kind of carry out in broad daylight, which is really great. Super, super happy with this. Like I've said probably 1,000 times now, but really, really glad I did this effect. If you have this model and you're considering doing work like this, I highly recommend it. Turned out top tier, so. Okay, I also just realized that in my last video I didn't have one of the bombs on the wings, so put that bomb back up on top. Now it has the full effect of walking into seeing full afterburner, fully armed F-16 right in your face, which is pretty awesome. Super happy with how it turned out. Go ahead and showcase the switch real fast. It's the on off, and our charge port nicely hidden right under there. Some of our weathering. The light's actually too bright for the camera to focus, but yeah, it looks fantastic. So thank you for watching, and hopefully this gave you some ideas if you were thinking about doing something of the like. Thanks.